It was a quiet autumn afternoon in Paris. Golden leaves swirled gently across the damp sidewalks, carried by a soft breeze. N'Golo Kanté, one of the most respected midfielders in world football, was strolling through the streets of the 6th arrondissement. He liked that neighborhood, discreet, almost anonymous. Dressed in a simple gray hoodie, hood up, he was enjoying a rare moment of peace, far from the noise of stadiums and cameras. As he waited to cross a busy street near the Jardin du Luxembourg, something caught his eye. An elderly woman, surely in her 90s, stood at the curb, slightly hunched, holding a worn-out cloth bag and leaning on a dark wooden cane. She wore a deep violet coat and seemed unsure, not just about the traffic lights, but about her own steps. Her small eyes weren't just watching the cars, they were searching for courage. Kanté stepped closer, naturally. "Bonsoir, madame," he said gently. "May I help you cross?" She looked at him with surprise, then smiled. "Oh, my dear, that would be so kind of you." He offered his arm, which she accepted with great care. Slowly they began to cross together, as drivers stopped respectfully. While walking, she turned her face up to him. "You have a good heart. I can see it." Kanté smiled, modest as always, saying nothing. Once they reached the other side, she paused. "Could I ask you for one more favor? I'm heading to that bench over there, but the wind today is rather strong. Would you mind walking with me?" Without hesitation, Kanté nodded. They made their way toward a wooden bench under a bare tree. She sat down with a small sigh of relief. Just as he was about to say goodbye and walk away, she stopped him with a gentle gesture. "You wouldn't happen to be one of those football players, would you?" she asked, a twinkle of curiosity in her eyes. He nodded shyly. "Yes, I am." She studied him for a moment, then chuckled softly. "I thought so. You've got the look of someone who carries more than what people see." Kanté sat down beside her, intrigued. "What's your name, madame?" he asked. "Madeleine Marchand. I'm 95, and I've seen a lot in my time." She looked up at the sky briefly, then back at him. "You know, young man, life is longer than we think, even for those who leave early, and you're only living one part of it, but already you seem so tired." Kanté's eyes widened slightly. No one had ever spoken to him like that. Madeleine continued, "When I was young, I wanted to be a singer. They said I had a good voice, but I married young. Time passed. I had children, buried my husband during the war, raised my boys alone, never sang professionally. But I never regretted it. You know why? Because I lived truthfully. And truth, my dear, is the only thing that lets you sleep in peace." Kanté sat silently, as if her words were unlocking doors inside him he didn't know existed. "You have a gift, N'Golo. But don't let your gift consume you. Many people confuse talent with obligation. Your gift is football, yes. But your duty is to yourself, to your soul." She looked him in the eyes, and for the first time he felt exposed. Vulnerable. Have you ever asked yourself what you truly want from life beyond chasing a ball? Kanté thought for a moment, but had no answer. They sat in silence, a silence that didn't feel uncomfortable but necessary. Madeleine gently placed her wrinkled hand over his. "You helped me cross the street today. Maybe I'm helping you cross something else." He smiled, deeply moved. This elderly stranger had touched something within him that no coach, no teammate, no fan ever had. They remained there a while longer, unhurried, as the sky began to turn amber and the city kept on moving. Kanté didn't know it yet, but her words would stay with him, shaping decisions, changing how he saw his career and his life. On that bench, beside a 95-year-old woman who had only wanted help crossing the street, something inside him had quietly begun to change. In the days that followed, Madeleine's words echoed through Kanté's mind with quiet intensity. He returned to training, surrounded by the usual rhythm, coaches, teammates, shouts on the pitch, the ball gliding across grass. Everything around him looked the same, but inside something subtle had shifted. He became more introspective than usual. During team meals, while others joked and chatted, he sat quietly, chewing slowly, his eyes distant. When conversations turned to luxury cars, sponsorship deals, or upcoming transfers, he would nod politely but contribute little. One morning, the coach called him aside. "N'Golo, are you all right? You seem distracted." Kanté shrugged, thoughtful. "I'm just thinking, trying to figure some things out." At night, he stopped turning on the TV. Instead, he sat at his kitchen table, a notebook in front of him. In it, he scribbled down scattered thoughts. What moves me beyond football? Who am I when I'm not playing? Is this the life I chose, or just the one that happened to me? He started returning to the same park where he'd met Madeline, hoping to see her again. At first, she didn't appear. He waited hours on the same bench, watching the passers-by. He sometimes wondered if their meeting had been a dream. But one cold Saturday morning, she returned, being wheeled by a caregiver. Her eyes found his immediately, and her face lit up. "I knew you'd come back," she said, smiling. They sat together again like old friends. "So," she asked, "have you been thinking about what I told you?" He nodded. "Every day." "And?" she pressed. "I've realized I've always done what was expected of me. I worked hard, stayed humble, gave everything on the field. But I never stopped to ask if I wanted any of it. Maybe I've lived without ever deciding who I am." Madeline listened, her gaze fixed on the sky. "Living on the surface is easy," she finally said. "But to live with depth, that takes courage and honesty." He looked at her, hesitant. "I want to do something real. Something that means something. I don't want my legacy to be just stats or trophies." "Then do it," she said simply. "Don't overthink it. Act." That night, something sparked in him. The next morning, he requested a short break from the club, just a few weeks to clear his head. The board was surprised, even concerned. But he was calm, resolute. He offered no details. He began visiting working-class neighborhoods across Paris. No cameras, no press. Just N'Golo, listening. He spoke with teens who wrote music in underground studios, kids painting murals on concrete walls, young people who dreamed but had no structure, no space to grow. Their energy moved him deeply. It felt raw, alive. An idea started forming. He wanted to build a place, somewhere young people could feel seen, heard, safe. A space for them to discover themselves beyond school or sport. He envisioned workshops for writing and music, art and conversation, dance and football. A place not to teach them who to be, but to help them figure that out for themselves. He returned to Madeline with sketches and notes in hand. "I want to open a cultural center," he told her, "for young people, where they can express themselves and learn who they are." She smiled, eyes glistening. "You're not just building a center, N'Golo. You're building a bridge, the kind that helps others cross." He named it Maison Madeleine. Located in a restored building on the outskirts of Paris, the space opened quietly. No big launch, no media coverage, just open doors. It had a small library, music studios, a theater room, writing circles, a kitchen for communal meals, and of course a pitch outside. The rule was simple. Everyone had a voice, and no one was more important than the other. Word spread quickly. Teenagers from all backgrounds started showing up. Some came out of curiosity, others out of need, but many stayed. They found comfort in the music sessions, pride in the poetry workshops, confidence in the small moments of recognition. N'Golo split his time between the field and the center. He helped serve food, joined open mic nights, played in casual football games with kids who had no idea they were sharing a pitch with a world champion. He listened, and in those moments, he felt more connected to his purpose than he ever had lifting a trophy. He still visited Madeline weekly. Her health was declining. Her voice was softer, her body thinner, but her presence remained powerful. "One day," she whispered, "you'll understand why this all had to begin with me needing help across a street." He brought her a bronze plaque one day, showing her the inscription he planned to place at the entrance of the center. It read, "Maison Madeleine, a place to cross into who you truly are." Tears welled in her eyes. "Then I've done my part," she whispered. He embraced her, not carefully, not as one hugs the elderly, but fully, as one hugs a soul who changed their life. That night, as he walked home, he no longer wondered who he was. He knew. He was someone who helped others cross, not streets, but fears, doubts, silence. Someone had once helped him do the same. Winter settled deeply over Paris. The air was sharp, the trees bare, and the sky hung low and gray. Still, inside Maison Madeleine, warmth bloomed. Laughter echoed through the halls, music vibrated from the studio, and quiet conversations filled the reading rooms. The center had become a haven, a place where young people discovered not only talents, but parts of themselves they'd never been allowed to show. N'Golo Kanté continued to move between two worlds, the structured intensity of professional football and the grounded human rhythm of the center. He no longer felt torn. Each world fed the other. The field gave him discipline, and the center gave him soul. But underneath it all, something heavy began to grow in his chest, a quiet awareness that Madeleine's time was nearing its end. He visited her often now. She spent most of her days in bed, her body frail, her voice thin like old paper. Yet her eyes, even tired, still held that piercing clarity. Sometimes they spoke, sometimes they just held hands in silence. One rainy morning, he got the call. She passed peacefully during the night, the nurse said. No pain, just sleep. N'Golo sat still for a long time, the phone resting in his hand like a stone. The apartment around him was silent, but inside, everything roared. Memories rose one after another, her voice, her smile, the way she'd once said, "You helped me cross the street. Maybe I'm helping you cross something else." And she had. More than she would ever know. But he had made a promise to her. No funerals, no black clothes, no mourning as tradition dictates. Just life. He organized everything in silence. No press releases, just a message to the community. 1 week later, on a bright but cold afternoon, over 200 people gathered in the park where it had all begun. They came from all corners, kids from the center, artists, volunteers, quiet neighbors, old friends. Everyone held something violet, scarves, flowers, ribbons, the color of Madeleine's coat. On the old wooden bench, they placed a bronze plaque. To Madeleine Marchand, the woman who taught us how to cross. There were no tears, not out loud, only soft eyes and full hearts. There was music, live drums, a young girl singing a song she wrote in the center studio. A boy read a poem called "The Street Is Not the End." Laughter rang out during stories of Madeleine's wit, her sharp advice, her deep listening. She became legend and memory all at once. N'Golo stood before them, simple and still. When he spoke, it was quiet, but everyone leaned in. She once told me truth without courage is just decoration. That stayed with me. She gave me the courage to live truthfully, and now we carry her truth forward together. He looked at the bench. She didn't just cross a street that day. She crossed into my life and changed it. In the weeks that followed, Maison Madeleine was flooded with support. Musicians offered free workshops. Writers volunteered for mentorships. A famous chef donated meals every Friday. Young people began creating their own projects, documentaries, podcasts, journals, because they believed they had something worth saying. The center expanded. A second one opened in Lyon, a third in Marseille. Eventually, there was one in Dakar. Kanté never called them franchises. He called them echoes. Each one is a crossing, he said, a moment when someone finds themselves halfway between fear and becoming. He returned often to the original bench in the park, not to grieve, to remember, to thank, to breathe. One day, as he sat watching the afternoon light drift between branches, he noticed an elderly woman standing uncertainly at the edge of the crosswalk. She held a small bag. The traffic was fast, the light blinking red. Without hesitation, he rose. "May I help you cross, madame?" She looked at him, surprised by the kindness, and smiled. "Thank you, young man. That would mean so much." They stepped into the street together, slowly, steadily. Because some crossings are physical, some are emotional, and some go on forever.